Leo, you are muted.
Yes.
Thank you. I welcome you to our second webinar. I hope everybody can hear me. And today we will talk about the biofertilizers that were developed by the University of Bologna and how we're going to apply them during field trials or small-scale field trials in urban gardens in Berlin. This is a follow-up of the last webinar, which we had in March. So if anybody hasn't seen it yet or is interested in knowing more about it, I will send the slides to you later on. And during this webinar, we discussed basically what the PataFEST project is about, how we're planning on involving citizens in the project, and we briefly introduced the Open Soil Atlas project that focuses on soil quality monitoring involving citizen scientists. But today we have a different topic. Oh, I didn't mean to start it. We have Simona Fermani and Jeyun Mamadov from the University of Bologna. We're going to introduce the biofertilizers that are being employed by PataFEST. Just to give a brief introduction, Simona is an associate research professor of inorganic chemistry at the University of Bologna, and her research focuses on protein crystallography and biomineralization. She has postdoctoral experience in Cambridge and Los Angeles and had a working period in the industry, having worked for Nexans. For the PataFEST project, she's working on the preparation and optimization of protocols to produce biofertilizers, so the ones that we will talk about today. Also, we will have Jeyun Mamadov, who's a PhD student in plant pathology at the Department of Agricultural and Food Sciences. And he has completed his bachelor and master in soil science and agrochemistry at the Azerbaijan State Agrarian University and started his career in agronomy, focusing on tomato production in one of Azerbaijan's top greenhouse complexes. For the PataFEST project, he focuses on diseases such as the Candidatus Liberibacter solanacearum, which, if some of you remember, we also discussed during the last webinar. Welcome you both. I will also quickly share a little bit of information since I put myself as the third speaker. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Leo Menzel. I'm a project officer at the European Citizen Science Association. Personally, I have a background in international environmental law, but right now I'm focusing on finding ways to involve citizens in research processes. And one of them is to invite urban gardeners in Berlin to apply the biofertilizers. So without further ado, I will hand the mic to Simona and will give you control over the screen.
Okay, thank you, Leo. Good afternoon to everybody. Okay, I'm just checking. Yes, I have control. Okay, so the title of this talk is From Mollusk Shell to Biofertilizer. So the topic of this presentation will be biofertilizer produced from mollusk shell. So mollusk shell are a really beautiful object, as you can see from this picture, but their value is not only limited on the beauty of this object. So if we think to shells from aquaculture and that normally is considered as a waste product, really, indeed, they have a valuable, they are a valuable material, a valuable biomaterial, so a material that comes from the biological world. So the data from FAO, they are not very recently, but anyway, of 2019, show us that the market, the global production of mollusk shell is about, in the totally, let's say globally, is about 16 megaton per year. And it is worth about $34 billion per year. So it's a big market. And mollusk shell are composed by approximately the 98% in weight by calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is an important material, and as you can see here, the calcium carbonate market size is exceed 150 megaton per year, and it is mainly produced from Asia, Europe, and North America. So which are the main sources of calcium carbonate? Mainly quarries. So the production of calcium carbonate is not really eco-friendly, so it has a strong impact. So the production of calcium carbonate from quarries has a strong impact on the environment. And in a very few amount, it is produced by synthesis. So it is synthetically produced, but the procedure are poorly sustainable and not really eco-friendly. So our idea was to use the calcium carbonate from the biological world, in particular from biological organisms that are normally considered a waste product from the aquaculture and food industry, as a source of calcium carbonate to substitute the quarried or synthetic calcium carbonate. And also we can say that the biogenic calcium carbonate show peculiar properties. We can see here that using a very powerful microscope, if we observe the structure of the crystal of calcium carbonate inside the shells, we can see that the shape and the morphology of these crystals are really peculiar with respect to the, sorry, I'm turning on the laser. So here you can see picture, okay, of crystals inside shells. And here you can see a crystal from common calcium carbonate. You can see that the morphology and the shape is really different. And the reason is that the crystallization of calcium carbonate inside in the biological world, so for example in marine organism, is biologically controlled. How we have this control? Because among crystals, as you can see here, okay, shells contain an organic matrix composed of biomolecules. Biomolecules such as proteins or polysaccharides. And you see that these organic matrix that you see here between the tablets that are crystals are contained then in among the layers of calcium carbonate crystals. Here you see a picture of the organic matrix alone, so the crystal have been dissolved, and you see how we have this scaffold of the organic matrix. Another feature of the organic matrix, another role of the organic matrix is also to the control of the type and structure of calcium carbonate which is produced in marine organism. We well know that in the environmental condition, the stable calcium carbonate is calcite. So the calcium carbonate that we can find in quarries or in minerals is calcite that has this structure. Here the sphere are the calcium ions, while these, let's say, triangles are the carbonate ions, and this is the structure of calcite. But in marine organisms, we have a different form of calcium carbonate called polymorph, which is aragonite. You can see that the arrangement of ions in the space is completely different. So if we study by using X-ray the different type of calcium carbonate, so for example, a crystal of calcium carbonate obtained in the lab or extracted from quarry, and two type of shells, so oyster and clam, we can see that the composition is completely different. So the common calcium carbonate is composed by 100% of calcite. The same is for oyster. Okay, these are oyster. While, for example, clams are composed mainly by the second form of calcium carbonate that is not very stable in the environment condition, but is stable in the marine organism. That is aragonite. And we have only a lower percentage amount of calcite. So coming back to our biofertilizer, we start from two types of different shells, oyster and clams, because I just show you that these two shells are composed of a different type of calcium carbonate, oyster calcite and clams aragonite, and we obtained the powder from this shell using a planetary ball milling, that is this device. So we grinded the shells using this ball milling. It has inside, so the shells were loaded in this zirconia jar together with the zirconia balls that of course make the grinding process. So what we say, we optimize the grinding process in such a way we could preserve all the structural feature of biogenic calcium carbonate. So the crystal properties and also the content of the organic matrix. Here you can see a section of the zirconia jar of the ball milling that rotate, okay? And so by using the centrifugal force, okay, you can see that the grinding process is obtained. So the shells are ground. So from the crystals...
Crazy.
Sorry? Okay, maybe nothing. So from crystals of shells, we obtain powders. So we obtain powders of calcite that you can see here. This is a picture obtained by an electron microscopy, and powders of clams. Then from this powder, we incorporate some elements which are macro and micronutrients for plants, in particular for potatoes. So Jae-yoon will talk more about the choice of these elements. Anyway, we choose phosphorus as a macronutrient, iron, zinc, molybdenum, and boron as micronutrients. So we started from powders, and again, we use the ball milling in solid state to grind this powder together with the salts or compounds containing these elements. Okay, here you can see a theoretical formulation that Jae-yoon and the colleagues produced, so let's say elaborated. And this is a theoretical formulation for a good potato biofertilizer with the percentage of the elements that we choose. And then here you can see the composition of the biofertilizer with the percentage of the elements. So calcium, which is the base coming from calcium carbonate, phosphorus, iron, zinc, boron, which was not detected because the amount was very low, and molybdenum. So we produced two biofertilizer, one based on the oyster powder and the second one produced based on clams. So concluding, which are the advantages of this multi-nutrient seashell biofertilizer with respect to conventional fertilizer? So first, that we can use in this way a waste byproduct, which are shells, that it's a waste product of the aquaculture and the food industry. And I remember that they are composed mainly by calcium carbonate. So they are a very good source of calcium carbonate in a, let's say, optics of circular economy. So biogenic calcium carbonate is cheap, is abundantly available, is not toxic, is biodegradable, and it is an efficient biosorbent for metal ions. So it means that it can easily include metal ions, so elements such iron, zinc, or other metal ions. The production of calcium carbonate powders from shells is an easy and cheap process. Moreover, biogenic calcium carbonate show a slow dissolution rate in the solid, and this ensure the availability of nutrients for a prolonged time period. So we can say that from a fresh product, which are shells from aquaculture, we can obtain potato growth. Okay, thank you for your attention. I leave the floor to Jae-yoon.
Hello everyone. Okay, everything's okay? Hello everyone. I'm going to talk about the biofertilizer which we made for potato plant. After doing extensive literature review, we decided and focused. Sorry, I changed the slide. Sorry. After doing an extensive literature review search, we decided to focus this 6 element and iron, boron, molybdenum, calcium, phosphor, and zinc. Due to the function of the plant, this element helps in the plant disease resistance, metabolic balance, structural reinforcement, stress tolerance, and phloem protection. Nutrient disease interaction in plant. The first, the calcium. We divide this element in 4 different type. First is structural elements. We choose here the calcium because calcium is essential element and important element for plant. It makes more stronger plant cell wall, and it is create a barrier for pathogens. And phosphor is a provide or plant with energy, and this energy helps to stress and pathogen signals. Iron helps in the oxidative antioxidant enzyme and also play a role in photosynthesis. Zinc, boron, and molybdenum is low percentages of the element in this fertilizer, but it has a good role for our plants. Benefits of the fertilizer. Our fertilizer contain 6 the macro and micronutrients. And this is organic fertilizer because the main base we get the seashell, derived seashell, and this is also makes a role pre-harvest and post-harvest diseases because the calcium is a vegetative element. Also calcium is a vegetative element, but it promotes cytokine synthesis in plant, and cytokine is important enzyme for against plant pathogen. And here the pre-harvest and post-harvest period, especially to get health tubers, the calcium helps a lot in this way. And our fertilizer eco-friendly because we are not pollinate soil. Next. Sorry. I would like to mention that what challenge the possibilities difficulties in this concept. Maybe we can create in applying application of this biofertilizer in a different type of the soil. For instance, the low and the high pH level of the soil. We have a problem, iron and the calcium, because these two element, the high level of the pH and low level of the pH, it create a problem, and the plant so hard uptaken this element in the soil. And the different other fertilizer or synthetic fertilizer or biofertilizer is the organic, and the main base is a seashell. And to change the soluble form of this fertilizer, it takes a little bit time. And next, the observation of the impact. This is not we can see the first time of the application. We need to several application, and then we can see our the impact or fertilizer impact on potato plants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will briefly stop sharing to see if anybody has any follow-up questions directly to what Simona and Jayun have just introduced. And if not, feel free to keep asking them in the chat, and then by the end of the webinar, we can go through all of them together. So unless there's any direct follow-up questions, you can raise your hand, raise them in the chat. I see none, so I will move on to the second part. Okay, so now that we've basically discussed what the biofertilizer consists of and what advantages it has in comparison to conventional fertilizers, I want to explain how we're going to test those fertilizers in urban gardens in Berlin. So for this, I just wanted to briefly explain a little bit of the background behind it. We have 3 large-scale trials happening as part of the PataFEST project. One is happening in France, one is happening in Germany, and one in Spain. And during each of those, they will apply both the oyster and the clam fertilizer and compare to the conventional practices. In our case, we will focus on one, which is namely the oyster fertilizer, but I will go more into detail later. However, yeah, the main idea is to have a small scale version and a more, let's say, regular day-to-day application of the fertilizers on a smaller scale. So we are trying to involve urban gardeners who can then test the fertilizers themselves, thereby also creating more transparency when it comes to the research processes, and hopefully also being able to gather valuable data from the citizens who are participating. And we are lucky that the Stadtgarten Lichtenberg has agreed that we can host the workshop there. So the Stadtgarten Lichtenberg is a garden based in East Berlin. They are Stadtgarten is German for city garden, and they are a collective garden where instead of renting out individual plots, as you would usually have it in urban gardens, it's one shared space. So if you're joining the garden, you can, you're not limited to one plot, but you can kind of experiment around. And I also got to visit it the other day, and it's pretty beautiful. They have a lot of trees, lots of plants, from garlic to cherries to pumpkins and aubergines. They're planting all sorts of fruits and vegetables there. And we will have our very first workshop there where we will apply the fertilizers, which is taking place this Saturday at 2. If anybody's based in Berlin or planning on making the trip, then feel free to join us. And this is basically what it will look like. We have 2 fields. the control field, and the fertilizer field. And for the control field, we ask participants to just plant potatoes the same way they would if they have before, and if they hadn't, just try to do it as closely as you think is the regular practice. And then for the fertilizer field, we ask you to apply the solution, so apply the fertilizer and then add water. And in order for the fertilizer to get soaked into the earth, to let's say become one with the soil, it will need 5 to 7 days. Maybe Simona and Jayun can explain later why it requires that amount of time. However, after waiting for a week, you can then plant the potatoes in both field A and field B. Once you've done that, we are kind of looking forward to seeing the difference in the plant growth. So after they've been planted, we would like to see if the plant, if the sizes is different, if they have, if you can see any visible differences when it comes also to pathogens. Are they maybe more susceptible to diseases, to sunlight? Anything that you can notice, feel free to take a picture, to create notes, or to document the difference in any way. And then in August, we'll do something similar where we will compare the potatoes from the field A to the potatoes from the field B. And we ask people to classify between infected and healthy potatoes, and to also check if there's difference in the sizes. So if there's maybe one plant that has lots of large size potatoes and the other one doesn't, that's also very helpful information to have. And I know, since people in Berlin might not have access to a garden or they don't have a whole field, obviously this also applies to you if you have a balcony and you have 2 pots where you can do the experiment yourself. Yeah, and also depending on how much yield you have, we would like to see the difference in storing. So if you're planning on keeping the potatoes for a little bit longer, to see how do they store under the same conditions. But we also understand, once you harvested your potatoes and it's on a smaller scale, they're most likely gone in a couple of weeks. Yeah, and this is it for the experiment. Also, feel free to ask any direct questions. And if you want to follow either the activities or also other updates from PataFEST, please follow us on Spotify, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. On Spotify, you will hear our Potato Talks podcast, which is based on potato topics that we are discussing within the PataFEST project. And with this, I would like to thank you for joining the webinar today. And I will stop the recording now, and we can maybe have a little bit of a follow-up discussion, and you can ask your questions.